Hello to all astrology enthusiasts. In this video, I want to discuss the new moon in the zodiac sign Taurus, which took place on April 27, 2025 at 10:31 p.m. and affected the 7th and 8th degrees of Taurus. Overall, the new moon opens up a period for us until November 5th, 2025. The waxing moon will be in effect until May 12th, 2025 inclusive. And before we discuss the specifics of this new moon, let's recall what this astrological event is and how it manifests its energies in our lives. So the new moon always creates situations of new beginnings in our lives, the setting of intentions, and the launch of some fresh life cycles, situations, or projects, especially in the area of life where it occurs in our natal chart. This is a time when our external activity is at a minimum, but our internal readiness for change is at its peak. And circumstances arise that prompt us to make a decision to start some kind of project, to set the tone for future events. This could relate to a new job, a course, a relationship, or new habits. Often, this is a moment when we feel that everything has been reset. We need to take the first step, even if it's just intuitively, without complete clarity. The new moon is a good time to reflect on your goals, on concrete steps, in other words, to plant a seed that will bear fruit in the next 2 weeks or even in 6 months. And 3 days after the new moon, you can already start manifesting your wishes and intentions, writing down your plans. Now let's discuss the specific features of the new moon in the zodiac sign of Taurus. First of all, it activates a very powerful, strong, earthy, fixed energy that is focused on material stability, physical security, our values and resources, and our inner support and sense of calm. And the new moon in Taurus is not about quick starts, but rather about a slow, thoughtful launch of something valuable and long-lasting. The focus of this new moon will be on creating a foundation, whether financial, physical, or emotional. And the new moon can also bring about situations, for example, a financial turning point. That is, you might launch new sources of income, make decisions about investments, or reconsider your pricing policy if it relates to your project or business. There is a strong desire here to achieve financial independence. The new moon will also create situations where decisions need to be made regarding either comfort or our bodies. In other words, these could be moments when we start taking care of ourselves in a new way. For example, we might start going to massages, practicing yoga, completely change our diet, or adjust our sleep schedule. Or we might develop an interest in natural cosmetics or cooking. Maybe you'll want to consume more farm fresh products, or perhaps you'll feel like taking up gardening. There will be new situations where the question or need arises to reconsider your value system. In other words, we might suddenly feel that we want to live differently, more simply, calmly and sustainably. There will be a desire to let go of the unnecessary, to reassess our priorities, including in relationships. There will be situations here when we pay attention to our self-esteem, self-perception, and self-acceptance. In general, it's important for Taurus to feel sufficient, both in the eyes of others and in their own eyes. And the new moon can provoke an internal dialogue like, what am I worth? Why do I deserve more than I have? There will be situations when you need to focus on creating your own space. It could be buying furniture, renovating your home, or, so to speak, searching for your own place under the sun. Or you might simply want to change your place of residence. This new moon is also a good time to start long-term projects, especially in the fields of design, aesthetics, architecture, agriculture, art, food, fashion. everything related to our bodies. These are all the specific features of this new moon, the new moon in Taurus. And in order to use this energy to your advantage, it's very important to set specific, tangible goals for yourself that relate to finances, health, and stability, focusing on quality rather than quantity. You can also use perhaps rituals connected with the body and nature. For example, grounding yourself, walking barefoot, relaxing in silence, doing some meditation, working with aromatherapy, or cooking a delicious meal yourself. And it's also very beneficial during this new moon to ask yourself questions like, what makes me calm and stable? What can I rely on within myself? What material resources, what resources in general do I want to develop in my life? The ruler of this new moon, the new moon in Taurus, is the planet Venus. Venus is currently direct and is the planet of love, values, resources, money, beauty, pleasure, and in general, the central perception of our lives. So in the context of the new moon, what could this mean? Since Venus rules Taurus, in general, all the themes of the new moon are, so to speak, under her supervision. To understand this more deeply, you should first pay attention to where transiting Venus is currently located in your chart, what sign and house, and what aspects she will be making at the moment of the new moon, that is, how she will be influencing a specific area of your life. And overall, I want to draw attention to the energies of Venus as the ruler of Taurus. This concerns material values. That is, it's about money, property, what we accumulate, and what we consider valuable. It's about sensuality and comfort. So these topics will also come to the forefront: physical pleasures, touch, taste, coziness, aesthetics, beauty in your surroundings, in your body, in things, in clothing. You want to bring all of this into your life. If we're talking about relationships, the topics of physical intimacy, reliability, loyalty, or mutual benefit in relationships will be relevant here. And of course, self-esteem, the ability to assess yourself, your resources, and to feel your own worth. And if at the moment of the new moon, Venus, your Venus, is in a favorable aspect, it enhances the potential for improving your financial situation, for restoring relationships, for starting beautiful and stable projects, and for investing in yourself and your pleasures. But if Venus is under tension, then issues related to our sense of value may arise. In other words, how well am I able to stand up for my own worth? Am I sacrificing my comfort for the sake of others' expectations? Am I too dependent on external approval or on something material? Now let's look at the symbolism of the degree in which the new moon occurs, and after that we'll examine the minor aspects. The 8th degree of Taurus is depicted as an image, as a picture where a sled is on the ground without any snow. The essence of the symbol is to be prepared in advance, even if it's not yet the season. In other words, the symbol speaks to us about the wisdom of foresight. That is, when a person has already made the sled, meaning they've prepared for winter even though there's no snow yet. At first it may seem pointless or premature, but as soon as the right conditions arrive, the one who is prepared will be a step ahead. What kind of energy potential is embedded here? First of all, the theme of planning is strategic thinking. In other words, it's important to take steps now for the future, even if on the surface it seems too early or that the time hasn't come yet. Here, it's important to use your experience or traditions, in other words, to rely on what is already known, proven, and effective. This includes cultural, professional, family, and personal experience. There is also potential here in the intuitive anticipation of cycles. That is, we somehow know internally that we will soon need something specific, and we are already preparing for it now. We don't wait for an external signal. And of course, this is about maturity and foresight. So even if people are telling us right now, why do you need this? We can feel inside that we will need it soon. And we are right in our decisions. How can this manifest in life? For example, launching projects that will bear fruit later. This is a kind of delayed result. It could be investing in something for the future, or preparing for changes that are not yet obvious to those around you. Or it could be renovating, moving, creating a financial safety net, taking proactive steps. Or it could be studying, mastering certain skills that will become in demand in the future. Or it could be preparing for a new season in life. For example, something related to professional activity, or to spirituality, or to some creative initiatives. And here, the main message of this symbol is to prepare your sled in advance, even if everyone around you says it's still summer. We will feel when that moment comes, our moment, and then we will use this potential. We will be the only ones who already have everything ready. I'll also note that the full moon in Taurus will occur in November 2025 at the 14th degree. And here I want to give you a reference point for what we should achieve over these 6 months. In general, the 14th degree of Taurus is depicted as an image of children playing on the shore, while a mollusk crawls along the water's edge. And this symbol reveals situations when a person gets tired of control, rationality, and social obligations, and it becomes vital and necessary for them to return to simple joys, to spontaneity, to playfulness in their life. And this energy helps us to restore our strength through contact with nature, with our true selves, through rest without guilt, through creativity for the sake of pleasure, through sensuality, and by being truly present in the moment. In life, this can manifest as a sudden urge to go for walks, be near water, draw, play with children, to disconnect from the state of I must and return to the state of I want. Here it's important to allow yourself to be in a state of feeling, to understand what you truly want, not just what is considered right. And this symbol of the 14th degree supports not ambition, but vitality. It's not about effort, but about connecting with the flow, where true vital life energy and inspiration are born. So the transition from the 8th to the 14th degree of Taurus shows us the path from this inner preparation, this kind of strategic anticipation, to a return to the simple living reality of the body and feelings. And here the main conclusion is that true stability and readiness for the future are born not only from a well thought out plan, but also from the ability to remain alive, sensitive, and attuned to the natural rhythm of life. In other words, the idea is not to drive yourself into a kind of chase for material resources during this period. That is, first we learn to look ahead, we prepare our tools, so to speak, but then we need to let go of control. We need to allow ourselves to be genuine, playful, restful, sensitive, and alive. And this is a kind of balance between this process, the rational process of preparation, and still being truly present, which is exactly what gives us support and strength in life. So it's important here not to get carried away. That's really the word that comes to mind for this period, not to get caught up in the pursuit or realization of some of our material ambitions. Now, let's look at the aspects of the new moon in Taurus. First of all, we have the sun and moon in a trine to the retrograde asteroid Pholus. In general, I really enjoy looking at interactions with asteroids and stars because they add extra layers of energy that can manifest in our lives. And here, this aspect brings very harmonious, supportive energies that contribute to a deep awareness of our personal needs and past experiences. This aspect can generally activate themes of forgiveness, healing, and releasing old attachments that prevent us from moving forward. Here, this kind of emotional support and inner calm help us address issues related to money, property, our security system, and the system of material benefits and resources. And during this period, under this aspect, realizations may come about what needs to be completed, what needs to be let go of, to get rid of some past mistakes, to experience a kind of liberation. This is a moment for tranquility, for inner work, for implementing long-term plans where the balance between stability and readiness for change is especially important. This aspect will provide exactly those opportunities. Let me remind you that in the background we have a grand cross formed by Mars in Leo, the Sun in Taurus, Pluto in Aquarius, and the Black Moon in Scorpio. These players have been active since April 18th and of course have created a very tense dynamic for us where in our lives our desires, our strength, and hidden aspirations have clashed. And all of this required very deep transformations. This aspect could generally provoke both internal and external conflicts, struggles for power, control, and the assertion of one's own values. On one hand, Mars in Leo activates the desire to be noticed, to express oneself, to push forward one's ideas and goals with this kind of vibrant energy. But Pluto in Aquarius, considering that they're in opposition in addition to the square, can force us to abandon some old patterns of behavior. And this will lead to unexpected and very deeply transformative situations. The Sun in Taurus, in turn, primarily helps to strengthen our self-esteem and sense of self-worth, not just our material foundation. But there's also the Black Moon in Scorpio here, and it tempts us with the awareness of certain dark sides, with some hidden fears, suppressed emotions, the fear of losing, for example, control. And this period, while the Grand Cross is active, it was active for us until the end of April. The tension is gradually subsiding, but this is a period that has become a time of significant changes in our lives. And we may have reconsidered our goals, our values, our principles, and faced our own inner shadow sides. And all of this needs to be integrated. We need to integrate it into our future growth, our future life. That's why this process of transformation, which has been set in motion by the Grand Cross, requires effort, patience, and a willingness from us, a willingness to let go for the sake of something greater. In other words, it's about freeing ourselves from old blocks, situations, and relationships for the sake of something greater. And it was precisely the new moon in Taurus that became, so to speak, the peak, that released this heavy energy. And by May, it will start to subside. We'll start to feel lighter, so to speak, and everything will become much easier. At the moment of the new moon, Venus is preparing to conjunct Neptune in Aries, and this is already a new energy that brings into our lives a mix of romantic idealization and a drive for spontaneous, impulsive actions in love and personal relationships. This aspect will activate our desires, romance, inspiration, and sense of beauty. And here there may also be clashes between all of this and illusions or unrealistic desires and expectations. We may feel a very strong need for a deep connection with our partner. But at the same time, we also sense the risk of deception, self-deception, and misunderstandings that concern both our personal values and our relationships. The energy of this aspect in general can also bring creative inspiration, a desire to engage in art, if we are not talking about personal relationships. What is important here? It is important to stay grounded in reality, especially when it comes to love and finances. In love, this aspect can bring exciting encounters, but you need to be very careful about illusions, because after all, this is Neptune. It can create a situation for us where we fall into the trap of unrealistic expectations. I also want to draw your attention to the planet Uranus, which at the moment of the new moon is making 5 sextiles at once and brings such interesting energies that create many opportunities for change in our lives, particularly in the areas of finances, material values, and certain stable habits. Because Uranus is in Taurus, and the sextile aspects open doors for us. So to speak to unexpected but very productive changes that will help us break free from limitations and from certain traditional approaches. Uranus is the planet of change, the planet of innovation. Harmonious sextile aspects. They contribute to a very smooth introduction of something new into our lives. This may relate to new technologies, work methods, and approaches to saving money or managing resources. Here we will feel inspired to improve our financial situation, to master some new forms in business, new business models, or to increase our personal effectiveness. This is a time when the aspects give us the enthusiasm to introduce something unconventional into our lives, not to destroy stability, but on the contrary, to renew everything and, in a way, create entirely new foundations for our future. And in the next video, we will look at how the new moon in Taurus will affect each of the 12 zodiac signs. I wish you success. Subscribe, like,